A second child dies following a house fire in Oshawa last week. The same fire claimed the life of her mother and sister.
No way, not a chance. Olivia Chow sits down with CP24 and says that Canada will never become the 51st state. This as she unveils Toronto's plan to tackle tariffs.
And Ontario's police watchdog is investigating a fatal stabbing in Hamilton. We'll tell you what led to an officer firing their gun.
And saying goodbye to Canada's oldest retailer. Hudson's Bay gets ready to liquidate its stores. 9,000 employees could lose their jobs. We've got to have reaction this evening.
You're watching Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thank you for joining us on Live at 5. A second child has died after being pulled from a burning home in Oshawa last week. The child's mother and 9-year-old sister also died in the same fire.
And for more on this, let's go live to CP24's Phil Perkins, who's outside of that home this hour. Phil.
Bakari, Lena, this is the first time I've been outside this now triple fatal fire here in Oshawa, just off the 401 here. And it's devastating. It's hard to look at as we just take a look here. Half the house is gone. It is completely charred to oblivion. I'm seeing fridges that were engulfed in flames, and you can tell that a family of 4 lived here. The children's clothing charred, kids' toys gone. They're the only new toys here outside this house are those left by the community here for this family of 4. Memorials here of plush toys, grocery store flowers, things as the community just paying their respects to this family here, which has now lost everybody but the father. Just recently now, as you mentioned, the eldest daughter, 12 years old, succumbed to her injuries after being pulled from this fire back on March 12th. The sister, the youngest at 9 years old, and her 46-year-old mother also confirmed dead. The father, the lone survivor now, 56 years old, still being treated. We also understand that several firefighters who came to this fire during the March break had to deal with smoke inhalation as well. They have investigated this fire here in Oshawa, and they have determined that no foul play was involved here. Now, we don't have the identities of this family, but it's not hard to find, unfortunately, with situations like this. There are GoFundMes that do start as you take a live look here at the house here. You can see the door here, which would lead to the second floor. It just leads to nothing, just open air because everything is gone. The whole house has just been torn apart and just left in what remains what would have been the driveway here. But a GoFundMe has been started for this family here. 3 out of the 4 dead in this fire. So far, $11,000 has been raised. So if these images shake you like it is myself right now, just looking at this for the first time, and you want to give back to the family again, you just have to Google Oshawa and GoFundMe fire, and you'll find it there quite easily. Just want to make sure you double check to make sure it is the right one. Again, they've raised $11,000 to try to help this man now because the family is gone. But a family now, this man is left. If you want to raise any money for them, you can do so. Back to you.
Just devastating live pictures, too. Thank you, Phil. To another deadly house fire now, this one in Hamilton. One
person's dead. The investigation into the cause, it continues. Chopper 24 was over the scene. This is near Main and Wilson, where the incident happened early this morning. Officials have not released any information about the victim. No other injuries were reported.
And staying in Hamilton, Ontario's police watchdog, the SIU, is investigating after a suspect was shot by a police officer. But the incident started with a fatal stabbing.
Okay, this is where CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan picks up the story and connects the dots. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari, Lena, the house is the one over my left shoulder. Behind me there, Hunter Street and Spring Street are the cross streets in Hamilton. Police tell us that at 4 p.m. yesterday, they responded to a altercation, which led to a shooting. Now, the police are able to use lethal force if they are doing so to prevent grievous bodily harm or death from occurring. The SIU invokes its mandate anytime that the police use force where there is grievous bodily harm or death that occurs. And the object of, or the idea for the SIU would be to critique the actions of the officer to see if, in fact, they acted well within the law, which is Section 25 of the Criminal Code. So this incident happened yesterday at 4 p.m. We heard from Hamilton Police today in the afternoon, and here's what they said with regards to what led up to the shooting. Let's listen.
Upon arrival, officers located a male victim on the porch of his home, suffering from a stab wound. Moments later, officers interacted with a suspect inside the home, and the SIU has invoked their mandate as a result. The victim of the stabbing succumbed to their injuries, and the homicide unit was called in to continue the investigation.
The man shot by police, according to the SIU, is 30 years old, and he is still in a life-threatening condition. The scene is still being held here as the SIU and the Hamilton Homicide investigate both occurrences, and they are canvassing, looking for witnesses and evidence that will help them with the investigation. Send it back to you guys.
Okay, CP24's crime analyst, Steve Ron. Steve, thank you. Also, police are searching for a suspect in connection with a series of break-in-enters targeting downtown businesses.
Police released this image of the man they're looking for. Investigators say 6 businesses were broken into near Yonge and Wellesley early yesterday morning. It's alleged the suspect stole from each one mostly cash and electronics, with an estimated value of $2,500. The suspect was last seen carrying a green Dollarama bag. Anybody with information is asked to get in touch with investigators.
And York Regional Police are searching for a man in connection with a home invasion in Aurora.
Yeah, the suspect seen here is accused of breaking into a residence in the area of Murray Drive and Kennedy Street on March 6th. Police say he aggressively knocked on a woman's front door, and when she answered, he forced his way into the home. 2 victims suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries in the incident. The same man is believed to have tried to break into a house in the area on February 6th, but was unsuccessful. An Ontario court has cleared a man of terrorism charges after he admitted to stabbing 3 people at the University of Waterloo in 2023.
Giovanni Villalba Element stabbed 2 students and a professor during a gender studies class. This was on campus June of 2023. It left behind a ripped-up pride flag on a desk. Well, at his sentencing hearing today, a judge ruled that his actions did not meet the criteria required for a terrorism charge. However, it did meet the definition of a hate-motivated crime. And provincial prosecutors have asked for a 13-year sentence if the attack was ruled to be hate-motivated. Switching
gears, it's 5:07, 5 degrees. Let's get a check on the evening drive with CP24's Adjua and Siayabwa. How goes that drive, Aj?
Oh, really, really busy. It's at that Monday back from March break, so things are getting a whole lot slower out there. And if you're on the northbound 427, you're running into some major issues. So this is the northbound 427, right around the 409. Crews on scene of a collision that does have the 2 right lanes blocked. So as you can tell, traffic continues to not move from off the 401. On the 401, if you're on the eastbound, westbound side, actually, we were dealing with some problems. You know what? They're still here. So this is the 401 westbound in the Express. Just as you make around the approach to the Allen, left lane blocked to the collision. Eastbound so busy across the top of the city, but no live lane issues. And we are dealing with problems that are still with us. Thought they were about to clear, but that's not happening. So Niagara Bound QEW right past Ford Drive. It is a collision. It does have the left lane and shoulder occupied. I'll send it back to you both.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
It's 5:08, 5 degrees. This is Live at 5.
The city of Toronto has unveiled its plan to counter U.S. tariffs. We'll tell you all about that and our conversation with Olivia Chow. That's next.
Mayor Olivia Chow and city officials are out with a plan to fight back against U.S. tariffs.
Over the next 30 days, the city will implement 10 actions it says are designed to support businesses, protect workers, and strengthen Toronto's economy. They include prioritizing Canadian suppliers in city procurement and deferring property taxes for industrial properties. Contracts under $353,000 for goods and services and under $8.8 million for construction will also be awarded exclusively to Canadian companies. Mayor Olivia Chow defended the time that was taken to put together a response. And she sat down with CP24's Bakari Savage this afternoon to talk about the city's response to these tariffs.
Well, we are strong and we're polite, but you know, when you impose a senseless and hurtful trade war on Canadians, especially in Toronto, we're going to fight back. This is a defense plan. We need to protect the workers and the businesses. So, several aspects. Number one, we are buying Canadian, right? We are giving contracts to companies that are Canadian companies if the contract for construction is under $8.8 million. To buy goods and services that are under $350,000, we're also going to give Canadian companies a priority.
Fire Chief Jim Jessup announced that 17 pumper trucks that the service will receive as part of this year's budget will also be made in Canada.
Just as we are committed to protecting the city from fire and emergencies, today's announcement is about protecting Toronto's economy, businesses, and workers from new and significant challenges. Resilience is what makes this city strong. Whether in public safety or economic security, we are prepared and proactive and stand together to support our communities in times of uncertainty.
And City Councillor Brad Bradford says the plan is a good start, but he says it falls short.
We need to be a destination for businesses, for talent and for capital. And we need to look, not just north-south, but around the world. The best thing that municipalities can do is reduce the tax rate, reduce the red tape, and reduce the regulation. So again, a 6-month deferral might help in the interim, but it doesn't provide the type of certainty that our investors are looking for when they're looking to locate businesses.
And city staff spending will also be directed towards Canadian-owned and local businesses.
And speaking of business, the oldest company in Canada is now requesting to close all of its stores in this country in hopes of avoiding bankruptcy. Hudson's Bay could begin liquidating its assets as soon as tomorrow.
Okay, for more on what went wrong for the historic retail empire, we turn to Richard Powers. He's a business professor at the Rotman School of Management. Okay, thanks very much for joining us. First off, it's tough to see any iconic brand, especially one that you identify with, go under.
This is a very sad story, but it's been going on for a while. I think they've grabbed a couple of lifelines along the way, but this is the end of it, unfortunately, unless something drastic happens in the next few days.
Over 9,000 Bay staffers could be out of a job soon. And I want to point out here that this comes at a time of great uncertainty because of the trade war. Can you talk about the impact of that loss?
Well, I think things have played it. One is the decline, I guess, in people going to the bricks and mortar, more people shopping online, places like Amazon, so different types of competitors. But the other part here is that, the trade wars make the goods more expensive to get into the country, or if they're sending out to the United States. I'm not sure that's as big an issue here, the tariffs, as the other issues. They just do not have enough revenue on hand to meet their debts. They're technically insolvent, and that's why they've sought the protection of the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act, which will allow them to stay open. And the only assets they really have right now is inventory, and the landlords are crying for payments. So they'll start selling the inventory. If they gets a white knight or anything coming in to try to help them out, they may be able to leave some of the stores open, further on. But at this stage, it looks like the stores will close.
Okay, Richard, are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, I think Bakari's having trouble hearing you, but I'll just take it from here. We do know, Richard, that the Bay is still hoping for a restructuring solution. Could that happen, or is this really the end of the road for the Hudson's Bay?
Well, you'd have to think, the creditors know exactly what the status of the company is. They've been trying to make a deal with them. They've been, unfortunately, they have not been able to. So, as I said, I think it's a miracle throw at this time to see if they survive. I think they're probably going under.
And what about Saks Fifth Avenue, those stores that are in Canada and then the U.S. stores as well?
Not the U.S. stores. They're not part of this. Those are the Canadian stores are under license with the U.S. owner of those stores. So, but it does include them in Canada. So Saks Fifth Avenue, and I think there's another. I can't remember the name of the other subsidiary there, and Hudson Bay. So close to 100 stores will close, and as you mentioned, 9,000 people could be out of job.
And very quickly before we let you go, it's been really challenging for the retail landscape, especially if you are a department store. I mean, we've seen this with Nordstrom, Marshalls, now the Bay. Can you talk about those challenges and that changing landscape?
Well, these are big stores. They have a huge footprint in these facilities. And RioCan is the largest landlord they have. I think they have a number of stores. Well, they do have a number of stores with RioCan. They're the ones that are really pushing on this. They want to get paid, and they feel that the only way their money is if they liquidate some of their assets, and that's the inventory. So you start selling that. You try to pay off who you can, but it'll be very difficult for the employees. It'll be very difficult for customers as well. They've canceled all the points that people had and gift cards. They say April 6th. I suspect gift cards are going to be gone sooner than that. So I guess your message to consumers is get to Hudson Bay sooner than later if you want to get the value of the gift cards and perhaps some deals on the inventory.
Okay. Richard Powers, business professor at the Rotman School of Management. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, starting today, the TTC is deploying fare inspectors to its bus network.
For more on this, we're joined live by CTV Toronto's Sean Leathong now. How are riders reacting to the changes, Sean? Okay, we're having trouble hearing Sean Leathong there. We'll get back to him as soon as we can. In the meantime, we'll take a quick break here. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
Mark Carney met with King Charles today in his first international trip as Prime Minister. More on this just ahead.
Welcome back. More now on a story we were telling you about just moments ago. Beginning today, some big changes are coming to the TTC. The transit agency is deploying fare inspectors to its bus network. This is to tackle fare evasion, something that's been a long-standing issue there.
And for more on this, let's go live to CTV's Sean Leathong. Sean.
Well, Bakari and Lena, just before the break, we were talking about how people are reacting to this. And it's funny because anybody we spoke to today says that they're all for this, the enforcement side of fare evasion. But the numbers tell us that there are definitely people who are doing it. The TTC says they estimate about $140 million are lost every single year to fare evasion. So what they're doing is they're having fare inspectors come out to bus areas. And that's somewhere they've never been before. Typically, they've been on streetcars, they've been at the gates for subways, but now they're coming out to bus locations and making people prove that they have actually paid to get on the bus. And they can do so whatever means they show. They can show their credit card and just simply tap, or if it's their Presto card or even their iWatch, something like that, whatever got them on the bus will allow them to prove that they have paid. So the TTC wants to clamp down because, as we know, this year their budget has actually gone up to a whopping $2.8 billion. At the same time, fares have actually been frozen. So the money has to come from somewhere. We know it's come from the property tax base as well. The TTC wants to alleviate fare evasion in some ways because they say that the numbers have gone way up in fare evasion in recent years. Here's Stuart Green for the TTC on that.
Industry standard is around 4 or 5%. That's considered 5% considered high. We previously had around 3 or 4%. That has now tripled. We're up to like 13, 14% fare evasion based on our last audit from a couple of years ago. That's far, far, far too high. It's $140 million, as you mentioned off the top, that could be going to service, could be going to station cleanliness, safety initiatives, and to keeping fares down. So that's money we have to recover. I'll also tell you that it's one of the #1 customer complaints that we get is people who see people getting on streetcars in particular, because that's where it's been most common, not paying and getting very, very frustrated because they themselves have paid.
Thank you.
So over the next couple of weeks, they will actually be giving people a warning, giving them an opportunity to pay if they haven't paid and they've essentially been caught. But after that 2-week period, these groups going around of fare inspectors will be giving out fines. The fines could be anywhere from $235 all the way up to $425. But the TTC says they want people to pay first because the money for payment comes to the TTC. When people are paying fines, it actually goes someplace else. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Lena Bakari, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Well, Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney was busy today in his first international trip.
Yeah, Prime Minister Carney kicked off the day meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. And Carney and his wife also stopped by the recently reopened Notre Dame Cathedral. Macron said that the diplomatic relationship with Canada supports the values both countries hold dear, such as the defense of democracy and the development for fair trade and protection of the planet.
Prime Minister of Canada, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty. Very good to see you. Lovely to see you. Congratulations. Very much, very much.
Carney then headed to London to meet with King Charles III after a quick stop in Paris. It's familiar territory for the Prime Minister, who served as governor for the Bank of England from 2013 to 2020.
Well, Carney wrapped up his day by meeting with British counterpart Keir Starmer to discuss Donald Trump's trade war.
we are amongst each other's largest trading partners, largest investors. And this is a moment, whether it's in AI, whether it's in clean energy, life sciences, our two economies are headed in the same direction, and our partnership can only deepen. And if I may add one other, which is particularly in these days, our security cooperation, which is seamless, is essential. So the partnership is strong, and it will continue to grow at a time where, including through the G7, we can help reshape the world.
The new prime minister says he doesn't plan to visit Washington at the moment, but he hopes to have a phone call with President Donald Trump sometime soon.
It's 5:24, 5 degrees. This is Live at 5.
The Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament kicks off in Toronto this coming weekend. We'll tell you more about that on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
The Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament is set to return to Toronto this weekend.
At least 190 players from across Canada, the U.S., Finland, and the U.K. have registered for this year's tournament. The Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament features 24 games over 3 days.
Mark DeMontes joined us earlier to provide a little bit more on blind hockey.
The sport of blind hockey has been played for many years, and it's played, like you see there, with an adaptive puck. It's larger, slower, makes noise, metal with ball bearings inside, and that's so that all athletes who are 10% vision or less, like myself, have the ability to play the game using their earring to locate and track the puck around the ice. Still the same game we all love. It's fast, it's entertaining. The objective is still to score on the opposing net. But other than a few modifications and adaptations like the puck, still the great game we all love.
So CNIB has been a partner of Canadian Blind Hockey for a long time now, and we're partners in two important ways. One, from a fundraising perspective, we help raise money for blind hockey activities, but mostly from a partnership perspective. We see a lot of families and young kids. Canadian Blind Hockey and CNIB both have the same goal. We strive to eliminate barriers to inclusion for people with sight loss so that they can do whatever they want to do, live the lives they want to live.
The tournament gets underway on Friday at the Mattamy Athletic Center, formerly Maple Leaf Gardens, and entrance is free.
It's 5:28, holding at 5 above zero. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, the city of Toronto unveils its plans to counter U.S. tariffs, which includes deferring property taxes for some industrial businesses. We'll tell you more about that coming up.
A second child dies following a house fire in Oshawa last week. That same fire claimed the lives of her mother and sister.
No way, not a chance. Olivia Chow sits down with CP24 and says Canada will never become the 51st state. This is Toronto unveils its plan to tackle tariffs.
And the police watchdog is investigating a fatal stabbing in Hamilton. We're going to tell you what led to an officer firing their gun.
Plus, saying goodbye to Canada's oldest retailer. Hudson's Bay gets ready to liquidate its stores. 9,000 employees could lose their jobs. We have reaction this evening.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. We start with this. A second child has died after being pulled from a burning home in Oshawa last week.
The child's mother and 9-year-old sister also died in the same fire. And for more on this, let's go live to CP24's Phil Perkins, who's outside that home this evening. Phil.
Alina Bakari, as I mentioned last half hour, this is the first time I've been to this fire here in Oshawa, just off the 401. And this deadly fire, this fire that has now killed 3 people, you can smell it just when you turn the corner here. And just taking a look behind me here, what was the garage? I talked to some people who have lived here for the last 6 years. They say this was the garage. It is now gone. It is a pile of rubble. And when you get closer to this scene, this devastation, you can tell that a family lived here. You can see a fridge that has been totally charred. You see kids' clothes, kids' toys, wipes, everything. And you can, what I understand from hearing from neighbors in the area, that the fire was mainly in the garage, and you can see just on the inside on what the structure that is left behind, it is charred and destroyed on the inside. Only what's left is the exterior here and whatever was just on the west side of this building. But there's nothing left, and there's almost nothing left of this family, tragically. Initially, when this happened on March 12th, the mother, a 46-year-old woman, and the 9-year-old daughter, both pronounced dead on scene. And then just today, the 12-year-old, the eldest, that young girl also succumbed to her injuries. The 56-year-old father, the only survivor, he had injuries in this devastating fire, but it is understood that he will survive. They have done the postmortem on the first 2 victims, and they say that there's no foul play involved in this fire. So at that point, the investigation is ongoing now. I don't know what the process is now that a 3rd person has lost their life. But people in the area here I spoke with saying that they've been here for about 6 years now. The 2 girls routinely seen playing outside on the street here or in the back. They loved dogs. Anytime there was a dog in the neighborhood, they had to gravitate and pet them. So we don't have the identities of the people here who lost their lives, but there is a GoFundMe. So again, I said in the last half hour, clearly this has touched the community here. Some memorials on either side of the scene here, but so far the GoFundMe has raised just over $11,000 now for just this 56-year-old man who has lost his wife and now 2 children. No amount of money, as we all understand, will bring them back. But if you see the images here of what is left of what was a home for a family of 4, and if this is hitting you in the soul and you want to give back, you can always just go to, just Google, honestly, Oshawa Fire GoFundMe, and that'll take you to the site. Just make sure to double check that it is the right site because, as we've reported in the past, there are some bad actors out there who like to take advantage. But again, you're looking at the scenes here of what is now a fire that has claimed 3 lives, a mother and her 2 daughters. Send it back to you, too.
Oh, just heartbreaking. All right, Phil, thanks so much for this. And to another deadly house fire now, this one in Hamilton.
1 person's dead, and the investigation, it continues. Chopper 24 was over the scene. This is near Main and Wilson, where the incident happened early this morning. Officials haven't released any information about the victim, nor the injuries were reported.
And staying in Hamilton, Ontario's police watchdog, the SIU, is investigating after a suspect was shot by a police officer, but that started as a fatal stabbing.
Okay, so this is where CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan picks up the story. Steve.
Bakari and Lena, Hamilton police tell us that they responded to a call to this house behind me here on Hunter and Spring Street in Hamilton just after 4 p.m. yesterday afternoon. They discovered that a man had been stabbed, a man in his 70s. He subsequently died as a result of his injuries. And the police were then confronted by a man in his 30s who had an edged weapon. One of the officers fired and struck this suspect, who is in life-threatening condition himself in hospital right now, according to the SIU. So the SIU has designated 1 officer as the subject officer and 4 officers as the witness officers. Now, the police are able to use lethal force under Section 25 of the Criminal Code to prevent imminent threat of bodily harm and or death. And, of course, it's the mandate of the SIU to investigate matters when there is death or serious bodily harm occurring as a result of an interaction with the police. So the homicide squad from Hamilton will investigate the homicide, and the SIU will investigate the actions of that 1 subject officer to see if, in fact, they were justified in law to use the force that they used. Here's more from the police who we heard from earlier on. Let's have a listen.
Police have identified the stabbing victim as 74-year-old Charles James Francis Jouvence, but his friends and family called him Jacques. We are still in the very early stages of this investigation, and a motive is unknown. Forensics will continue to be on site, processing the scene in conjunction with the SIU, and we will be canvassing in the neighborhood for CCTV footage and any potential witnesses. We encourage anyone with information about this incident to contact us.
Police are trained when they are confronted by somebody holding a weapon. They are trained to instruct that person to drop that weapon as loud as they can possibly say that. And that is for 2 reasons, guys. Number 1, it gives the suspect instruction as to what the officer wants them to do. But just as important, it creates witnesses as well. So as the SIU investigates this matter and canvasses the area, perhaps somebody who may not have seen the altercation may have heard the officer instructing this man in his 30s to drop that edged weapon before he was shot. I'll send it back to the desk.
Okay, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ron. Steve, thanks for the update. With that, it's 5:37. Let's get a check on the evening commute with CP24's traffic specialist Adjoa Ntiyaboa. Adj.
Yeah, it continues to be a busy go, Bakari, and still watching this ongoing situation on the northbound lanes of the 427. This is north of the 409. Crews dealing with this crash that does have the two right lanes still occupied. So as you make your way north, it's your biggest issue and your biggest delay. It does extend right on off the 401 up towards these problems. Now, 401 West still heaviest in the express. Starts from the Don Valley Parkway to approaching the Allen. We had a collision in the express on the approach to the Allen. It was a left lane that was blocked, but the problem's cleared. And just taking a quick peek at the DVP delays from Don Mills all the way up towards the 401. If you're headed towards North York, crews on scene of a collision blocking lanes on Willowdale and Norton. I'll send it back to you both.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Thanks so much, Adjoa. It's 5:38, 5 degrees now, and you're watching Live at 5.
More news straight ahead. Stay with us. The RCMP have identified a second set of human remains found at a landfill outside Winnipeg.
The remains have been identified as belonging to Mercedes Myron, who is one of the murdered Indigenous women that workers had been searching for at the Prairie Green landfill. The first set of remains were first discovered in late February, and they were identified last week. They belong to Morgan Harris. They were among 4 Indigenous women murdered by convicted serial killer Jeremy Skibicki in 2022.
Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, was busy today at his first international trip.
Carney kicked off the day meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. Carney and his wife also stopped by the recently reopened Notre Dame Cathedral. Macron said the diplomatic relationship with Canada supports the values both countries hold dear, such as the defense of democracy and the development for fair trade and protection of the planet.
Prime Minister of Canada, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Very much.
And Carney then headed to London to meet with King Charles III after a quick stop in Paris. It's familiar territory for the Prime Minister, who served as governor for the Bank of England from 2013 to 2020.
And Carney wrapped up his day by meeting with British counterpart Keir Starmer to talk about Donald Trump's trade war.
We are amongst each other's largest trading partners, largest investors. And this is a moment, whether it's in AI, whether it's in clean energy, life sciences, our two economies are headed in the same direction, and our partnership can only deepen. And if I may add one other, which is particularly in these days, our security cooperation, which is seamless, is essential. So the partnership is strong, and it will continue to grow at a time where, including through the G7, we can help reshape the world.
And Carney says that he does not plan to visit Washington at the moment, but hopes to have a phone call with Trump soon.
And federal conservative leader Pierre Poilievre spoke near the Ontario-Quebec border, and he continues to focus on the carbon tax.
Carney's proposed shadow carbon tax will be bigger than Trudeau's carbon tax. And it's ultimately a trick. Hide the tax before the election and then bring it back bigger than ever after the election. This was a bad idea before the Trump tariffs. But now that Trump is hitting Canadian industry with a massive tariff, Carney is saying that he will impose a massive carbon tax on Canadian businesses. The combination of Trump's tariffs and Carney's carbon taxes would be a disaster for the workers behind me.
And Parliament is set to resume a week from today, but Prime Minister Carney is expected to call an election before then.
And Mayor Olivia Chow and city officials are out with a plan to fight back against American tariffs.
Over the next 30 days, the city will implement 10 actions it says are designed to support businesses, protect workers, and strengthen Toronto's economy. They include prioritizing Canadian suppliers in city procurement and deferring property taxes for industrial properties, contracts under $353,000 for goods and services, and under $8.8 million for construction will also be awarded exclusively to Canadian companies. Mayor Chow defended the time that was taken to put together a response. And she appeared on CNN earlier today to talk about the city's reaction to Donald Trump's tariffs.
Right now, Toronto, the city, we're just really upset. we're the fourth largest city in North America. And we have $79 billion budget at City Hall here. It's about the size of Florida. And we're saying we will not allow any American companies to bid on our contracts anymore. That's worth about $1 billion over 10 years. So we're hurting each other. So I think just stop this nonsense.
Fire Chief Jim Jessup announced that 17 pumper trucks the service will receive as part of this year's budget. They will also be made right here in Canada.
Just as we are committed to protecting the city from fire and emergencies, today's announcement is about protecting Toronto's economy, businesses, and workers from new and significant challenges. Resilience is what makes this city strong. Whether in public safety or economic security, we are prepared and proactive and stand together to support our communities in times of uncertainty.
City staff spending will also be directed towards Canadian-owned and local businesses.
And for more on the trade war, we're joined live by Industry Minister Anita Anand. She's also the new Minister of Innovation and Science. Minister Anand, it's good to see you, and thank you for joining us here on Live at 5. We appreciate this.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So we heard from Donald Trump. He said that the punishing steel and aluminum tariffs are here to stay. And this is Canadians brace for more coming next month. From your perspective, Minister, is this a done deal? Can anything be done to stave off the tariffs and the threats?
There are things that we cannot control, such as the decisions that President Trump is making, but we can control the supports we put in place for labor, for the steel and aluminum industry, and for workers across the country. And as industry minister, that's exactly what I'm focused on. I've been on the phone with the steel and aluminum businesses, with the association that represents them. And let me tell you, the Government of Canada is here in terms of supports for payroll. The Government of Canada is here with supports for industry, and we will continue to do whatever is necessary to build a resilient Canadian economy with or without U.S. trade.
And also, Minister Mark Carney spending the week with European allies, not in Washington, although the Prime Minister says he does want to get on the phone with Donald Trump. Has he talked to you about his decision not to be in Washington? And, how also does that, sort of correlate with your decision to make Canada less reliant upon the U.S. for 80% of trade?
Look, Canada is the only G7 country that has a free trade agreement with every other G7 country. And Prime Minister Carney is ensuring that we are leveraging our trade relationships with two of our most salient allies, our longest trading partners and allies, both France and the United Kingdom. And he's doing what is necessary to shore up diversified supply chains in an era when we are under threat from the United States in terms of Trump tariffs. So we will focus on the relationship with the U.S., but we need to diversify Canadian supply chains. We are currently dependent 80% on trade with the United States. If we are able to diversify our supply chains, we can add $200 billion to the Canadian economy. That includes by reducing internal barriers to trade. That includes ensuring that we have strong trading relationships with our largest allies.
I want to talk about the federal conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. He continues to go after your government's carbon tax policies. Today, he said that he would slash the carbon tax for everybody, and that includes industrial emitters. I want to give you a chance to respond to that, Minister.
Well, unlike the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre, we actually believe that climate change is a reality that needs to be addressed by the federal government and indeed all levels of government across the country. So responsibly, we are ensuring that the price on pollution is removed for consumers, and we will ensure that we have policies in place to reach net zero by 2050. One thing that the Conservatives fail to do time and time again is to tell Canadians whether they believe climate change is a reality and what their approach would be to address it. And that is a major failing of the Conservative Party of Canada at this time.
And also, as we begin to wrap up, Minister, let's talk about the business community and how you've been working with them, what they've been saying about these tariffs, about the carbon tax.
The business community has been very focused on ensuring that supports exist for Canadian workers within their sectors, as well as ensuring that we have strong supply chains across the country. What that means in real terms is payroll, which we're focusing on as a government. What that means is it's protecting Canadian industry. Now the Investment Canada Act is under my jurisdiction, and I'm going to be issuing a letter stating that I'll be reviewing the Glencore proposed transaction of a Canadian company. That's the type of responsible action we need to protect Canadian industry and to grow Canadian industry. Furthermore, I issued a letter today saying to any recipient of Government of Canada funding that you should be using Canadian steel and aluminum. You should be buying Canadian, you should be supplying Canadian, and you should be contributing to growing the Canadian economy.
Okay. Anita Anand, the new Minister of Industry, Innovation and Science. Good to have you on, and thank you for this conversation.
Thanks a lot, Minister.
Take good care.
You too. It's 5:50, 5 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Hudson's Bay was back in court today seeking approval to begin liquidating its entire business. We've got more details and reaction coming up. Welcome back. A full liquidation at Canada's oldest company could begin as soon as this week if a court approves it.
Hudson's Bay is seeking approval to liquidate all 80 of its stores, as well as 3 Saks Fifth Avenue stores and 13 Saks off-Fifth locations in Canada. HBC is still clinging on to the hope of finding sufficient financing and a viable path to restructure. Court has given all parties until 2 p.m. tomorrow to continue working on outstanding issues, but didn't provide a timeline for when a decision is going to be made. And Andrew Hatney, the lawyer representing employees and retirees of Hudson's Bay, says that he was pushing for a 1-week pause in court today.
The judge's comments were very helpful. I think there is going to be a lot of work happening right now over the next 24, 48 hours. He left it flexible, but we're hopeful something will emerge over the next 24 to 48 hours that will lead to a better result than a flat-out liquidation.
And Ian Lee is an associate professor at Carleton's University's Sprott School of Business. He joined us with a breakdown of what happens in insolvency cases like this one.
They've determined that they're no longer able to. No one wants to buy the company because of the huge strategic problems inside the Bay. And so now what they're doing is going to the liquidation step. And they will liquidate it piecemeal, piece by piece, filing cabinets and inventory on the shelves, and they're going to get a lot less money. Let's be clear. Selling a business as a going concern generates far more money than literally selling off the bits and pieces.
It's 5:55, 5 degrees. This is Live at 5.
The Blue Jays announcing today who will be their 2025 season opening starting pitcher. We'll tell you more next. Welcome back. The Leafs will try and turn things around tonight when they host the Flames at Scotiabank Arena.
The Leafs have lost 2 straight in 5 of their last 6 games. Toronto's 4 points back. The Panthers in the Atlantic Division. The Flames have dropped 5 of their last 7 games and trailed the Canucks and Blues for the final wild card spot in the West. Puck drop tonight. It's at 7:30.
Good steal by Jakob. Jakob, the anticipation.
And the Raptors were looking for a 4th straight win last night in Portland. Jakob Poeltl led the way with 19 points. He was one of 5 Raps to score in double figures. A really good night for him. Toronto was up 5 heading into the 4th quarter, but the Trailblazers made 18 three-pointers in the game, pulling out the 105-102 victory. The Raptors are back at it tonight in Phoenix against the Suns.
And the Blue Jays have named Jose Berrios as their opening day starter.
Hi, Toronto Blue Jays fans. I'm Jose Berrios. It's an honor for me to be named our starting pitcher for opening day. I'm excited to get there and do my best for you guys, but also for my team, and ready to have fun and do a lot of good things for the city. God bless you.
most consistent Blue Jays starter there's been recently.
Barrios will get the nod March 27th to kick off the regular season in the Jays' home matchup against the Baltimore Orioles. Barrios is coming off an impressive 2024 season, striking out 153 batters in 192 innings pitched. It will be the second straight opening day nod for the 30-year-old right-hander.
All right, it's 5:59. This is Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
Thanks so much for watching us tonight. CTV News at 6 is coming up next.